Fraymakers, a pretty cool game. But so is Super Smash Flash 2. What if we combined them? That's what the point of this video is, sort of. I've already covered the Fray part of Fraymakers, so I wanted to dive into the Makers part. Of course, I'm talking about Fray Tools. Basically, the Fraymakers devs released Frankie, which is like Sandbag and Sandbird's long-lost brother. So I now have an opportunity to use this character template to make my own custom workshop character. Do I have any experience? No. But that's kind of what it's all about, right? Trying to figure out what it's like for someone who doesn't have any experience. So my first thought was, what if I try and make a Super Smash Flash character? Wait, no, not Super Smash Flash 1. Super Smash Flash 2 character. Because hey, if McLeod Gaming won't make a Super Smash Flash 3, then we might as well just turn Fraymakers into it, you know what I mean? But nah, for real, I decided that out of the Super Smash Flash roster, the character that I wanted to port first was Mario. Why Mario? Well, the Mario movie's coming out, of course, so it's a tribute to Mr. Mario himself. So I went into the SSF2 files to look for the sprites and audio for Mario, as well as double checking with the SSF2 dev team to make sure it was okay. Because I do want to stress that you should definitely avoid using people's sprite work without their permission. So with permission from the devs, and doing some basic image swapping with the default idol, I had Mario and Fraymakers. Technically, I mean, it's still Frankie. But it looks, pretty convincing, and I was honestly pretty impressed. It looks like it kind of fits in. He may not be perfect, but he looks pretty good. So yeah, starting out, Fray Tools was pretty cool. It was confusing at first, I won't lie. Like, I had no idea how to even make a basic animation, but after a few hours with it and a lot of help from the Discord, I was able to actually start getting some animations out. After my first one, boom, my second animation. Boom, my third animation. And then I added jumping, and then rolling, and suddenly I had all the movement done in one day. I was already schmoving with Mario, and you can't do this in Super Smash Flash. Anyways, and day 2 comes along and I'm like, you know what? I already have the movement done for Mario. Next, I want to add palettes. So because SSF2 sprites already have color mapping, it was honestly very stress-free to make these costumes. So yeah, I went ahead and made some of the classic ones, as well as some new ones that I think look really cool. And also this Rosalina one, which someone pointed out has a black mustache but blonde hair, which is now a feature and not a mistake. At this point, I was pretty pleased with the progress I was making. Things were going very smoothly, a little too smoothly, but we'll get to that. So the next part was the fun part, which is making Mario's attacks. Making attacks in Fray Tools is actually a pretty simple process for the most part. I really enjoyed doing hurtboxes and hitboxes for moves, so while it did take a long time, I didn't find it very boring. It was quite difficult though to make the moves feel like they do in SSF2 in the new engine. Like, you can't just port over the exact values for the moves, or they won't really feel right inside of Fraymakers. The first attack I did was Mario's neutral air, which I think turned out pretty good. It's a great move in SSF2 and even better in Fraymakers since you can do air dash nair as an approach option. Then I worked on down air, which is his classic drill. Although I learned while making this move, apparently this move actually has set knockback in SSF2, so even at 999% it never kills. Somehow I never knew this. After Dare, I worked on the Fair Dunk, which was one of the trickier moves to make. I didn't want to make it as impossibly hard to hit as it can feel in Super Smash Flash, or as reliable as it is in Ultimate, so I tried to strike a balance where it still feels satisfying while being a little bit more lenient. After Fair is Mario's up air, which was a bit of a more challenging move to make. This was the biggest change I made from SSF2 Mario to Fraymakers, was making his up air more of a combo tool. I experimented with multiple different hitboxes and reverse hits, so you can now do more vertical combos opposed to being limited to just horizontal ones. And the last aerial is back air. I didn't change this move too much, it still has its very strong initial hit, but it also has a lingering hitbox for combos. And with the aerials down, you could now actually kind of play Mario. Not fully, but you could do aerial combos, which was pretty satisfying. But then, things took a turn for the worse. Next was his tilts. Pretty self-explanatory. Down tilt try to pop people up, forward tilt to get off of me tool, and of course in SSF2 fashion, he has a very strong jab that comes out very quickly. But for his final tilt, which is his up tilt, I noticed something weird when I was coding it. For some reason suddenly, when I was opening up Fray Tools, I got a weird error message that said error rendering component. And at first I was like, okay, not a huge deal. But quickly I realized it meant my entire file was corrupted. And get this, I had 0 backups. Don't write that smartass comment, I know. I should have saved some backups. And when this happened, I was a little bit depressed. At this point, I was like 50 hours into the project, and my motivation was decimated. I mean, straight up, all of my work was erased like that. It was like God was punishing me for all of my sins I committed, all of the jab down smashes, all of the fireball camping. This was merely retribution. And much like a bad breakup, opening Fray Tools only reminded me of what I had lost. So, I gave up. Nah, I'm just kidding. If I gave up, this video wouldn't have come out, come on. After the file was completely messed up, I posted a clip on Twitter and got a lot of positive outpouring support from the community, and you know what, I decided I have to see it through to the end. If there's anything you learned from this video, let it be to always save backups. The error that happened to me seems to have been fixed in the most recent tester update, but I still recommend to everybody who ever tries Fray tools, always save backups. Anyways, after I remade everything, all I had left to do was smash attacks, throws, and specials. Throws were straightforward for the most part, and all of them turned out excellent. Back throw of course being his most notable throw as a pretty strong kill throw. As for smash attacks, down smash is frame 4 in SSF2, and a notoriously good smash attack. This makes it about frame 8 in Fraymakers, which is still pretty fast. Up smash is about what you'd expect, nothing really to say there, and forward smash is actually something I'm pretty happy with. Sometimes the visual effects from Super Smash Flash don't really look very good when they're put into Fraymakers, so instead I used a free fireball explosion effect that I found, which honestly turned out pretty good. And with throws and smash attacks done, all that was left was specials, which were a little bit difficult to do. I want to give a huge shout out to another Fraymakers YouTuber named Exo, who helped me with some of the more difficult coding in terms of special moves. Definitely highly recommend checking out his channel if you're interested in Fray Tools content. Mario's up special was pretty easy to make since Frankie's default up special is basically the same move, except sometimes it would do that. So once I tweaked it some and added some custom visual and sound effects, it turned out really good. Then came Fireball, which also turned out pretty okay after fixing a couple of bugs here and there. Mario's side special was a real challenge. Flipping people is luckily something you can do in Fraymakers, which already has built-in code for, and with some help I managed to also make a win box on the move, so it kind of functions like how it does in normal Smash. Of course, the move also doubles as a reflector, and even a recovery move, so Cape is extremely versatile. Down special was very difficult to make, and by far his most buggy move. I don't even know how many different bugs we came across when designing this move, and even now it's definitely his least polished move, but it's still pretty functional. And with that, Mario is basically done. And damn, does he feel good. Mario is fantastic in the Fraymakers engine. So to wrap this all up, I made a release trailer to show off and showcase his moveset. So if you're interested in playing him, the download is available right now. But without further ado, here is Mario.